So the Gospel reading this morning begins to remind us that in this season of Advent, this coming, this arrival, points to two things. First of all, the coming of Jesus in his incarnation, as we call it, the arrival that most people know about and think about in this season, his birth. But also in the New Testament there is the strong strand of teaching that this same Jesus will come again at the end of time. That actually he is the Alpha, to use the Greek letters, and the Omega, the beginning and the end. That he was there at the beginning of all things. When creation was made, he was there, and he will be at the end. And we look for his coming. Some time ago, I read somewhere that someone asked the question, well, if Christ doesn't return again for 10,000 years, if we get to the year 10,000 and still Jesus hasn't returned, will Christianity have lost its credibility? Just been going on for so long. And then one is reminded that actually it took, so they said, something like 60 billion years before he came in the first place. So 10,000 years is as nothing in God's timing. Perhaps those of you who've been here before may remember I sometimes quote the great Roman Catholic scientist and Jesuit Teilhard de Chardin. He knew about creation. It was his study. He says, remember the slow work of God. In your own heart too, by the way. Be gentle with yourself, though persistent. The slow work of God. He will come in his time. And we simply live as if that is true. In the translation that we had this morning, something is slightly missed just because of the translation. For it says, when these things begin to happen, in your translation, just give me a copy of it. So in the translation that you have, it says, when these things come, look up. Actually, in the original language, it's better to translate it, straighten up, stand up. And at the end of the Gospel passage too, it says that you stand before the Lord. And the very same word is used way back in the Gospel in a miracle that actually we don't really, as far as I can see, remember too much. When there is a woman who is absolutely bent over double. She is bound by Satan, by the powers of evil, it says. And she comes close to Jesus, and because she is close to him and because of his desire, she is, as it were, straightened up and able to stand because of Jesus. And in Paul's teaching, when he exhorts the Christians to stand, be prepared to stand before the Lord, he says you will only do so in the strength of Christ. In the strength of Christ. And in the baptism and confirmation service on Friday, which happened here, there is a particular moment, we call it the prayer of exorcism. Though we don't overstate that, lest anyone gets some fancy ideas that heads are going to swivel and all those sorts of things, like people think when they think of an exorcism. But it's a very important prayer of deliverance. For when Jesus comes near, those who are bowed down are straightened up, are able to stand. And in baptism, those who are weighed down are able to stand in the light of Christ and move on in his service and in his love. Stand up. But there is a particular phrase which is, from my mind, quite interesting in the gospel passage. And it appears a number of times. Keep watch over yourselves, Jesus says, as they live in the between time, between his presence now and when he will come. Keep watch over yourselves. And that particular word is used a number of times in Luke's Gospel and in the Acts of the Apostles, the second volume of Luke's writing. And it gives us some clues when we look at that, it seems to me, of what it means to keep watch over yourself. Over what sort of things do I need to keep guard over who I am as a person? And way back in chapter 12 of Luke's Gospel, when it's first used, the word, keep watch over yourself, lest you be hypocritical. Jesus uses the Pharisees as an example. Beware of the hypocritical life. That is the life where you say one thing and pretend something and do another. This is not the same, by the way, as the preacher who doesn't quite practice what he preaches, as long as in between those two things there is repentance and penitence. It's a penitent heart that gives a preacher or a Christian, an evangelist, integrity, not perfection. A penitent heart. It's a penitent heart that delivers the Christian from hypocrisy, from all the things that come out of our lips. The hypocritical spirit. Keep watch over that. I do not know your souls, or not as he knows them. Keep watch over hypocrisy, which Jesus calls is a leaven, a Pharisee like a leaven. And then later on, 5 chapters on or something, pay attention to yourself, lest you fall into temptation, lest you are tempted to sin. Now, one of the questions that is asked when a person is baptized or confirmed is do they repent of their sins? And when I was talking to some of the candidates about this, when I was having a cheeky croissant with one of the candidates in Phuket, it was probably the first time in that nice little cafe that the Australian prayer book was opened up on the streets to talk about the promises, little witness there. What sin are you? What are you repenting of? Things that are wrong, was the answer. But of course, in the Christian tradition, it's not simply according to what I think might be right or wrong, or even the prevailing culture thinks is right or wrong. The question is trying to work out what Jesus thinks is right or wrong, for he is the true arbiter of the moral life.